Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze bigger pictures out of literatures from the center of the tube because we're as bad as we want to be. We're here today for a poetry discussion, this being Break of Day in the Trenches by Isaac Rosenberg, another one of the trench poets, a poem from World War II, a war poem, but a poem that is not in celebration of war as we often see before this period in time. This is a return to some piss and vinegar, but this is, of course, part of two separate series here on the channel. One, of course, being the Poetry Discussion series, which is an ongoing series and playlist on Strip Cover Lit, but as well, we are on day 23 of the Dirty 30 videos in 30 days as we celebrate crossing 30,000 subscribers here on Strip Cover Lit. But let's get into it first with a reading of the poem Break of Day in the Trenches by Isaac Rosenberg. The darkness crumbles away. It is the same old druid time as ever. Only a live thing leaps my hand, a queer sardonic rat as I pull the parapet's poppy to stick behind my ear. Droll rat. They would shoot you if they knew your cosmopolitan sympathies. Now you have touched this English hand. You will do the same to a German, soon, no doubt, if it be your pleasure to cross the sleeping green between. It seems you inwardly grin as you pass, strong eyes, fine limbs, haughty athletes, less chanced than you for life. Bonds to the whims of murder sprawled in the bowels of the earth, the torn fields of France. What do you see in our eyes at the shrieking iron of flame hurled through still heavens? What quaver, what heart aghast? Poppies whose roots are in man's veins drop and are ever dropping, but mine in my ear is safe, just a little white with dust. Now, I think it is so World War I, a good place to start with this is that World War I was called the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, it was not, but it is easy to imagine why it would have been called that at the time. Everything going on was so crazy. The one way that I sort of have talked myself through this and how strange it is if you were to pluck so any other war, if you pluck it out of the lineup, out of the timeline, so you've got all of the Napoleonic Wars, you've got the 100 Years' War, you've got the American Revolution, you've got American Civil War, all of these things. If you had plucked one war out from the middle there, the soldiers would have known how to fight the next war. You would have been able to take someone who fought in, if you have three wars lined up, right, on a timeline, A, B, C, you pluck this war out, this soldier can fight in this war. Might be a bit upended, but is not going to be completely lost. If you plucked World War I out of the lineup, and I'm no expert on this, so if I am completely wrong about this, feel free to slap me down in the comments, but if you pluck World War I out of the lineup, no one has any goddamn idea how to fight World War II. Splitting atoms, flying through the sky, all of these things, science used as a direct weapon, not manufacturing being used in weaponry. But World War I saw the introduction of chemical warfare to the battlefield in a scope so that's one of the reasons why Einstein declared himself a citizen of the world as opposed to a German citizen, is because it was the Germans who started that. I don't remember the exact story, but he was so aghast at scientists being so directly involved in a war that he said, this whole nationalism thing, let's go ahead and take a step back. That's how crazy World War I is, or was. So I think what we're doing here is you've got this the thing that I always come back to with this poem is the rat. And the way that was introduced to me in college when we talked about this poem was it was used as the link was drawn between this and John Donne's The Flea, because it is this pest, this little vermin that is linking these two sides in something deeper. But what it's doing immediately in this poem is it's grounding us. Because everything is so crazy, we need grounding in this place. And it is the rat that really does it. Even the description of time. Because it is the same old druid time as ever. But even that's a little bit of a strange way to describe it. It is a bit of an off-putting way to describe something you've always known. But it is the rat that really grounds us, because you touch this English hand and you'll touch a German hand. So with that, we are able to look back at the idea of time in this poem, because looking up, you have the same old druid time as ever, so that in the skies, this is every morning that ever was. To this rat, this is every morning that ever was. Neither of them particularly care. They're doing the things that they've done. The rat and the time, the sky, the heavens. They're doing the same things they've always done. It's us, the people, that are ruining things. So the other symbol that we sort of have here to ground us is the poppy. What is the poppy doing here? The poppy has long been used to symbolize, what is it called, the remembrance poppy, I believe, to memorialize World War I. And there was a poem called In Flanders Field that popularized the idea that in this area of the world, the poppy is the first flower to grow on freshly churned soil, such as the type of soil that might be on top of a soldier's grave. I am not sure. I'm not sure the timeline here. I'm not sure if Rosenberg would have been aware of In Flanders Field. I believe so. If nothing else, he seems to be aware of the fact that the poppy has come to symbolize World War I and casualties therein. But to me, it doesn't matter, because for me, what's going on here is you have the same old druid time as ever. You have the rat, which symbolizes some type of mortality, right? That rat's not the same old druid rat as ever. That rat's going to die. That rat was born at some point. Time, not as much. The other thing that we have in this poem that is mortal is the flower. So it seems to be that regardless of what Rosenberg would have been aware of, these poems, these flowers are being used directly to represent soldiers. Poppies whose roots are in man's veins drop, and are ever dropping. So these flowers are being mowed down, essentially, just like people. But mine in my ear is safe, just a little white with dust. How safe is it? How safe is that flower? White with dust? If it's close enough to be white with said dust, it is not safe. It is not safe in your ear. But it is interesting to me that it is the flower which is used to represent us versus the rat. Because to the rat, everything is the same. And so this is a poem that has always spoken to me in that way, that even through this, people are something special. They're able to do especially rotten things, but they are something above the rat, above the vermin, even if they are below the same old druid sky as ever. But again, the piss and vinegar in this poem is different with Rosenberg versus Owen, is different with Rosenberg versus a lot of the trench poets that took the same negative stance towards the war, because Rosenberg seems to be content just rolling these ideas out there and leaving them without the judgment sometimes. At no point, really, does this soldier break with anger. He's just looking at stuff. Look at you. They'd kill you if they knew your cosmopolitan sympathies. Then he's plucking a flower, for Christ's sake. In the middle of standing watch. And I know I'm just mumbling through this poem, but this is one that always... I think that this poem is so naked that it really is hard to put all of your thoughts in one place and through one strain of process to come out with something cohesive on this, because there is so much going on, and there really is so little. There is so little judgment passed by Rosenberg here, who's obviously not happy, but he's not telling you how you should be feeling here. So that's why this is one of my favorite examples of the trench poets, and it's one of the ones that you'll be exposed to almost immediately upon looking into trench poetry and to looking at World War I poetry. So what are your thoughts on this poem? I would love to open up to conversation about this poem, to see what other people have thought about it and do think about it. And if this is your first time being exposed to it, do you feel compelled to search it out and dig into it? But that's all I've got for this episode of Strip Cover Lit. If you like this sort of thing, hitting the like button really helps me out. If you have not already subscribed, I would appreciate it if you did so. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for a tag video.